Hello and welcome along to another edition of Isolation Interviews for Hospital Radio Reading and for my YouTube channel. And I am super excited that we are joined by one of the youngest writer from the Neighbours reboot. I'm, of course, talking about the fantastic Chelsea Chua. How are you? Welcome along.
Thanks so much, Matthew. I'm super excited to be chatting with you today.
Now, there is so much to talk about, but I suppose we should start off with kind of where did the love of Neighbours come from for yourself? How did you become a fan of the show? Tell us a bit about your kind of introduction to Neighbours.
Yeah, so I first started watching Neighbours in 2008, and it was actually my sister who brought me into the show. She had seen like the advertisement for there was that teen pregnancy storyline with Bridget, Donna, and Rachel. I'm not sure if you're across that era, but she was really hooked into that, and then I kind of just sort of joined in, and then that's sort of where it began. I will say though, before Neighbours, I did watch a fair bit of The Bold and the Beautiful, so I think I was just kind of naturally a soap fan. But I suppose I probably only really became a real like super fan in around 2017, and I had a bit more downtime at that period in my life, and I became really interested in like what other fans were thinking about the show and the storylines, and that's when I sort of joined like the online community, discovered the wonderful Neighbours Twitter fandom. So that's yeah, I would say that's where it all kind of started for me.
The great thing with Neighbours is that the fans are so dedicated. When you kind of first got, into the sort of the Neighbours, I call it the Neighbours hood online. For you, did you kind of appreciate that there is such a love for the show out there?
Yeah, absolutely. And, I love how passionate everyone is. And and particularly, I love the Twitter community because people just have fun with it as well. I do know that, like sometimes some Facebook groups and things like that get a little bit just yeah, not the funnest space to be around, but particularly with like Neighbours Twitter, I just love that people just celebrate the show and are just not afraid to have a bit of laugh, like a bit of a laugh at the storylines or like a real and they have a real understanding of the show too. So it's nice to kind of find those mutuals who share that love with you.
And obviously, you must as well also have a love for writing because to kind of become a writer on a show like Neighbours, where did that come from? The love of creating?
Yeah, so my background is actually in the performing arts. I studied dance and drama at university, so I've always been a really creatively driven person. I will say though that like I never specifically set my sights on becoming a writer. It is something that I always enjoyed, and I would just do it in my spare time. Like I actually I've written a fair few Neighbours fan fictions just purely for the joy of it. But I never like kind of anticipated my career path specifically going in this direction. But yeah, so it's something that I've just always enjoyed, I suppose.
And how do you make the step? How did you become sort of, a writer on Neighbours? That must have been a kind of an exciting process, but how did that happen for you?
Yeah. So I had quite an unconventional pathway into Neighbours, I will say. I am sometimes nervous about this, like telling the story. I think most people think like, oh my gosh, that's super cool, and then some people are a bit, a little bit skeptical. But it did ultimately start with me being a super fan of the show, and I talked before about that Neighbours Twitter community. So I ended up, creating my own account that was really dedicated to sharing my commentary on the episodes and all my passionate feels about Neighbours. And somewhere, it's called Neighbours Stan, by the way. I would choose a different username now if I was to go back and do it again. But somewhere along the way, though, Shane Asheev, who's the current script producer at Neighbours, he followed me. I still don't really know why, and it was February like last year, and like literally out of the blue one day, I just got this message from Shane and was like, hey, like, feel free to ignore this, but are you interested in working in film and television, or in television, as I know, the script department at Neighbours is putting together their team, and that was a very exciting moment in my life, like probably like the most exciting message I've ever received, and I managed a professional reply back after all the screaming. And but I wasn't given the job on the spot. Like, I still had to like send through my CV and write in, and I remember like this was like my one shot, and I just remember in my cover letter just putting like so many Neighbours references throughout it. I even like signed off like with a little understanding, which is, obviously from the Neighbours theme tune, and then, had an interview, and then yeah, I guess that's how it all kind of happened. And I'd sort of been building up my career in the arts, and so it was there was some alignment there. But yeah, I'm really grateful for Shane, who obviously kind of started it for me.
I mean, had you ever met any of the cast before, or ever been to the set of Neighbours before that moment, or was it all, new for you?
Oh yeah, no, so I'd never been to the Neighbours set. I only moved to Melbourne like less than 2 years ago, quite like just very soon before I started this job. So I'd never been to Melbourne before, never gone to Nunawading Studios. I had met some of the cast before briefly on, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Logie Awards in Australia.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was one year where they were being held on the Gold Coast, and I went there, and that was very exciting. So that was really that was like the only time that I'd met them, and it was in passing. So yeah, but yeah, so it was quite new to me.
Now, obviously, coming into the show, I mean, there's so much history on Neighbours, and so many amazing actors have been through the show, and so many amazing storylines. For you, looking back, is there maybe a storyline or a sort of a character that for you was kind of a favorite, one that just makes you think of Neighbours every time you think of it? Is there one that sticks in your mind as a favorite?
Yeah, so I think this is a very easy one for me. My favorite storyline of like all time is the ongoing relationship between Paul and Therese. Praise, they are my absolute OTP. And Therese is, I would say, is like my favorite character of all time. She's, just so powerful, and yeah, I just love what a boss she is. So that storyline is definitely my favorite, and I've loved like lots of the different chapters of their journey throughout the years. And I think one that really stands out though is when all of Paul's ex-wives came back in 2019, just so soapy and campy and fun, and just it was just so Neighbours. And I think it was beautiful too that that culminated in Paul and Therese's wedding, which was really beautiful. So yeah.
Now, obviously, talking about the love of Paul and Trace, and I know a lot of the fans love that pairing. When you obviously joined the show, and then, I mean, when did you find out about the Toadie and Mel pairing, and what was your initial thoughts when you heard that?
Oh my gosh. Okay, so this is a bit of a story. So actually, the night before I was meant to start working at Neighbours, that was like when that announcement came out, that the cast announcement of Therese, Jane, Leo, and Mackenzie. I believe it was those four. And I remember because I was so excited. That was what I'd been waiting for, because obviously Paul and Therese reunited in the finale, and I was like, oh my goodness, we're going to see them in their happy era. They're like, this is like they're going to be their new golden chapter. I'm going to go to work tomorrow and get to read all these like happy scenes of them just being in love. And so I was very excited. My expectations were like up here. Then it was the first day. And I got taken on like a tour of the sets, and the person who was taking me on a tour like pointed out like Toadie's house, and was like, oh, so obviously this is Toadie's house, but he's not going to be living there anymore because he's moving in with Therese. And then so I found out that whole bombshell that Paul and Therese were not only apart, but Therese was marrying Toadie and was supposedly in love with him. Um, and I was truly devastated. But I was also very mindful too of trying to be professional. Like I didn't want to, like have too much of a reaction because I was like, okay, like I can separate my own feelings with storylines. So I kind of had to hold it in. And then I just remember going back that night though, because I'd been sent that first day like 6 weeks worth of the scripts that had already been done, and I went through like everyone, like control find Therese, control find Paul, are these two ever getting back together? So and then yeah, obviously it's a very long journey.
I mean, obviously getting to, start on the show and obviously you were, a big part of the reboot. But for you, what was that like, that first sort of couple of weeks of bedding in? It must have felt a bit of a dream or like a pinch me moment. What was that like getting your head around the fact you were on Neighbours, you were working on Neighbours?
Yeah, it was definitely super surreal. And actually, so when I first started, it was quite a while before production had resumed. So it was actually very empty there. And I think the moment I think that was really a real highlight for me was that first day back at filming when everyone like started coming back and like all the cast were there. And I remember we got to go up to be part of this ribbon cutting thing that was going to be for this live media cross, and the publicist was going around like, we just need extra people. I was like, so was happily roped into that. And I just remember that day, like I walked up to Lassiter's complex, and then like soon after, we had Steph and Dennis, Rebecca and Annie Jones and Lucinda Cowden and Alan Fletcher. Like they were all just like walking up there within a meter of me. I was like, oh, like this is not real life. It was very exciting. And but yes, I would say in those first few weeks, there was a lot of hyperventilating happening, honestly.
And I mean, I know a lot of the fans will kind of, sort of what you're doing now would be their dream job. I mean, to be a part of that show must be super exciting, but also at the same time, you get to have a say in what happens in the future. I mean, obviously, we can't talk about anything, in the future, but to be a part of, Neighbours history and be part of the reboot and be deciding what happens next, that must be quite an honor.
Yeah, so it's so this in terms of like the script department, we're separated a bit into a story side and a script side. So last year I was actually on the story side, and on the story side, we plot out the episodes. But I would say like it's it kind of goes without saying that I would say the majority of the big storylines and story arcs, they're really driven by the executive producer Jason Hubson and script producer Shane Asheev. But then I guess the team sort of on that side works together to break down those storylines episode by episode, what's happening scene by scene. And yeah, when I got to be part of that, so this year I'm actually more on the script side, which deals with the editing of the script, so it's less more so that creative generation of it. But I remember like one of my favorite things actually last year was I got to storyline a bit for Kiri and Nicolette's like romantic reunion, and that was really lovely to be part of. And yeah, it's exciting, like knowing that the stuff that you're typing in that room on your computer is going to impact like it's going to have an impact, and people are ending like going to watch those ideas on screen. So it's definitely very cool and fun to be part of.
And I mean, the other exciting thing must be, I know that we can talk a bit about the fact that you've actually been involved or heavily involved in an episode that's due to go out in May next year. So, I mean, obviously you probably can't say too much, but what can you say about that? What was that like to do?
Yeah, to be honest, the first word that comes to mind is stressful. Because I really wanted to make it as like best as it could be, and but I will say it was a really exciting experience. And without giving like, I feel like anything that I say will be a spoiler, as it's just so far ahead. But I can genuinely say it's a very dramatic episode. Like, there's a stunt, there's confrontation, there's like emotional scenes, and there's bombshells. And I remember when I first got the storyline notes for my episode, I was like, wait, is this actually like my episode? Like it was a big one. And it was great in my episode, I had a wide variety of characters as well, and like some of the newer characters, like from the new Neighbours, but also some heritage characters like Carl and Paul and Therese, who I'd just been watching for so long that it was really wonderful and very it was very natural for me to tap into those voices, particularly as I just felt like I'd known them for such a long time.
I mean, is there a character or someone that you loved writing for the most, or is it just you love that group as a whole?
I would actually say of course, I really enjoyed writing for the heritage, like those characters that have loved for such a long time. But I really enjoyed too writing for some of the younger characters, and you can have a lot of fun, like with their kind of like Gen Z speak. Um, yeah, like this sort of share house crew is always fun to write for. But as for like favorite character, I think my favorites will always be writing for my favorite characters, who are, of course, Therese and Paul.
And I imagine because the episode is set to go out in May, I imagine have you filmed it yet? Has it been filmed or is it still to be done?
So it will be shot in like early December actually. So the writer submits like the very first draft of their script, and then it goes through like a 7 week editing cycle, and that's like multiple rounds of script department, producers, directors reading the scripts, providing feedback, and then those edits and amendments being implemented and distributed out. So yeah, so it's quite a while before it's going to be shot, and it'll be really interesting to see actually like how much of my original work makes it to the end, because yeah, it goes through quite the cycle.
But I mean, to get to work with some amazing sort of co-writers, and I mean, the likes of, like you said, Shane and Jason. I mean, that must be quite nice, and to get their input as well, because it. I imagine it must be quite difficult to kind of do it on your own. So to have that support and know that everyone's got your back and they want you to do well must be fantastic.
Yeah, it's wonderful. I think it's nice to have all those voices kind of having a say and pitching in. It does feel like you are very supported. And absolutely, there's so much talent on the writers list. Like, some of the writers have been writing also for like 20 plus years on the show. It's incredible to see. And yeah, and in my current role, um in the script department, I have to read like 15 scripts per week. So I'm just getting to read like so much amazing work, and I learn so much just from reading the writing of others and who are more experienced. So yeah, it's really amazing.
And I mean, obviously, you must have noticed it as well, because a lot of the fans have noticed that since the reboot, since the show's come back, there's that new, fresh feel, and it just feels like the show is just like sort of heightened and so much better than it was before. Not that it wasn't great before, but I mean, to be a part of that and to get to see kind of the show really flourish, I would say it's probably at the best it's been for a long time. A new audience, obviously, with a lot of people in America now watching it. You must be quite proud to be part of the reboot and to see the love for the show.
Yeah, absolutely. I think like how great was like the Outback Week stuff just very recently. Like that was really next level. And I so agree. Like the storylines that have been coming out of like the new chapter of Neighbours have been fantastic, and like the new characters that have been introduced to have just added so much. Like the Varga Murphy family. I love them. But yeah, no, it's great. It's great to see that people are loving the new chapter of Neighbours.
I mean, also, you talk about the Varga Murphys, also getting to see more of the Rodwells. I think those two families
Oh,
have become, I would say, in a way, they've become like some of the most popular families on the show and have really flourished, especially in this new era.
yeah, no, I absolutely agree, because I'm obviously across the fan pages and the sort of fan commentary, and it's been wonderful to see so much love for those two new families, because I think sometimes like it takes a while for people to warm up to new families, like when they all kind of arrive at once. But yeah, I think those two, like just from like the very beginning of this new chapter, were really embraced, and I mean their stories have been wonderful, and they've such a great dynamic individually, those families, but together. I will say I was at a point really shipping JJ and Sadie. I'm not sure. I don't think that will ever happen anymore. But yeah, it's just yeah. I think they have a very interesting dynamic.
Now, I mean, obviously, there is a wealth of characters from the past, and I mean, is there a character that you would love to see come back in the future that you would love to write for? I mean, who would you love to see back on the show?
I would love Steph Scully was definitely one of my favorites. Piper is another one, and Summer Hoyland. She was like my absolute favorite, like back in the day. And I was so, and she came back for that stint with the Safe Erinsborough High protest. And I remember just being like, what? Like, I never imagined that A, I would be working on Neighbours, but B, that it would be a time where Summer Hoyland was coming back. I would love if she could come back again. Like, I would love to write for her. And yes, Piper and Steph as well. They were always two of my other favorite characters.
I mean, you've had some amazing sort of cast members on the show since the reboot. I mean, obviously, having Ian Smith back, he is just an icon. I mean, for you getting to meet him, that must be fantastic.
Oh my gosh, Ian is super sweet. I see you around quite a bit actually, and we have kind of really similar groovy glasses. Like he's got really interesting shaped glasses. That's something very specific, I know. But I mean, I feel like every time we have an interaction, we have some sort of banter about our glasses. But yes, um yeah, it's so surreal just seeing him floating around the halls of Nunawading. And I love having Harold back on screen. Like I feel like he brings so much heart to the show. So yeah, it was definitely an honor to meet the wonderful Ian Smith.
I mean, are you at the point now? Because I imagine, you've been working with the cast for, what is it, over a year now. It must be weird to go from being a fan to then becoming a friend, because I imagine you get to, sort of, see them a lot. So is that still weird when you see the cast around and get to bump into them? Is that still weird?
Oh, I feel like I've definitely learned to get my sentences out a little bit better. I remember like the first time, like few times whenever I would like run into them, I would just, I couldn't get any words out. I was like so starstruck and I still am. But yes, I feel like I've kind of, um, it's kind of a bit different now. But yeah, I, it's still very surreal to where every time like I bump into them, but definitely I think just seeing them around more often has kind of calmed me down a tad bit. But yeah, and they're all so lovely, like all of them, and it's just so exciting too that the script department gets to be based out where the production is happening. I think I've heard that like years ago the writers like were based out at a different building, but it's so nice just to have everyone together. It really makes it feel just like such a collaborative and supportive environment.
And I mean, the other great thing with the show is to say it's always evolving, it's always moving forward. And I mean, for you, is there? I mean, obviously, we're not talking about any spoilers, but is there something you would love to see happen on Neighbours in the future? Something, maybe an idea that you've had that hasn't
Mm.
ever come to anything. But what would you love to see for the future of Neighbours?
Oh, yeah. So interestingly, one of something I'd really love to see, I recently like pitched a storyline, and it could very well be happening. So I can't share that one. So that was actually very exciting. I think I will share. I think I would actually love to see, I guess more generally speaking, I'm a huge shipper. Like I really love watching romantic relationships. I'd love to see more long term. Like when I think about Paul and Therese, that was such a slow burn build up. I think I'd like to see more relationships that are like that. I mean, obviously not everyone, but I think that's part of what made them so epic. And I can't think of one like a comparable partnership to them like since then like and yeah I think it'd be interesting to have more of the slow burn relationships and also I think just more like continued progress in terms of um, representing diverse lived experiences and marginalized communities like Neighbours has certainly come a very long way since the days when I first started watching like I think it was a completely like straight white cul-de-sac back in like 2008 2009 and particularly in like the last 6 years or so, I'd say it's been really empowering and beautiful to just see, the Ramsey Street community just become more inclusive and diverse. And I'd love to just see that continue. So yeah.
I mean, yeah, you've hit the nail on the head there. I mean, when I was talking to Georgie Stone, obviously about arriving as Mackenzie, and just that whole no one talked about trans really before then, and then she came along, and then it just became normal, and it wasn't about the fact she was trans. That was part of her character, but she was just a person at the end of the day. And I think it makes people's opinions and judgments easier when they've got that kind of continued viewing and they can see a character that they can go, oh well, they're just normal. I know it sounds stupid, but at the end of the day, some people, maybe don't see trans people or don't see, lesbian, gay, anything like that. And to have it on Neighbours is fantastic. And you must be so excited to be a part of that.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. And I think like a show like Neighbours that is just so ingrained in people's lives and in like culture, it has, that real powerful capacity to just, shift people's perspectives and help people just understand different worldviews in a way that's just really gentle and really, yeah, just really powerful. I absolutely agree with what you said. And it's certainly helped me a lot, like in my own identity journey, like seeing, that a whole bunch of diverse characters like that. Yeah, it's representation is so important and powerful. And yeah, I totally agree with what you said.
Now, I just want to say before we go, I mean, what would you say to the Neighbours fans out there who are loving the show, keep watching it? What message would you like to say to them?
Oh, oh, I can't give away any spoilers, definitely, but I would, yeah, definitely keep watching because there's going to be so much excellent stuff, really exciting stuff coming up. I think we're all aware that next year too is the 40th anniversary of Neighbours, and that stuff has actually just recently been shot, which is why it's quite front of mind for me. But the drama there is like it's like unmissable drama times 100. So lots of amazing stuff coming up, and so I'm sure there'll be plenty for people to look forward to.
I mean, we know that the last couple of sort of anniversary celebrations have been epic. So the fans can only imagine how good the 40th is going to be. You obviously can't talk about it, but briefly, how much of a mind blow was that whole thing?
Oh, wait, you sort of. Sorry, you froze there for a moment, but I think I caught the tail end of that. But yeah, it is an epic week of episodes. Like, yeah, the 35th anniversary was, really, really up there with the end game stuff and the nostalgia. But I think the 40th anniversary is like equally up there, even potentially even more so. So, and it's a real celebration, I think, of, you know, um, neighbors and soaps. And yeah, definitely, I definitely don't think anyone will be disappointed.
Now, we just have to say thank you so much, Chelsea. It's been a pleasure. People need to keep watching Neighbours. It's here in the UK. It's 7 a.m. on Amazon Freevee, Monday to Thursday. Chelsea, thank you. It's been an honor and a pleasure speaking to you.
Thank you so much, Matt, for having me on the show. It's been so lovely to chat with you, and hopefully, we might cross paths again in the future.